what kind of last year, all the stuff we went through, bloody, bloody bear. Now, hard to say. I mean, it doesn't feel like a bear right now. It feels more like a sideways. Maybe it's a whipsaw. Depends on, a lot of factors involved. But at least for Hex in this ecosystem with PulseChain launch one day closer, it feels good. I think we deserve this. I think all the people are still here who didn't fud themselves out and didn't drum up all the stuff and really just just for hanging in there. It feels good. I feel like we got a win already. But I wanted to bring up this tweet, a couple tweets here. One of them is yours as well. But Xerox Coast talking about Hex is still 85% below prior all-time high. If in doubt, zoom out. Let's go PulseChain. And then I think that was really, just kind of for framing wise. And then I'm going to go over to your tweet as well. Accumulating Hex now before the inevitable liquidity squeeze should be a priority for anyone getting in. Soon price will run away. Next potential stop. Ooh, wow. Next up. Wow. Dollars. Yeah. What do you want to riff on that?
Yeah. So I will say this too. It's very interesting to me. And kind of funny when we hear a lot of people on YouTube too, influencers who are, very gung-ho about Hex for all the right reasons, but their expectations of price performance are not really based on logic. If you're going to be bullish of what the system and the structure in place is likely to showcase, right? So I think that with Hex, we've, and this is again something that I don't want to keep referencing the guy, but Axis has done very well in outlining, and it really comes down to the liquidity play right now. And so that, ultimately, in a nutshell, it just basically means that Hex is in a situation where it doesn't really take much volume and capital to push the price, up a great amount. And so, looking at how that will actually play out, if sentiment is as we think it will be, as more interest in volume certainly takes place over the next couple of weeks, as we start getting some of these catalysts take place, like, the testnet V3 in itself is going to be pretty powerful, I think. Mainnet announcement. And I'm, even just up until then, there's a very good chance that we hit that all-time high again, because of the fact that there's going to be hopefully a lot of capital coming in. And that liquidity is in a place where it's going to be affected very highly by that capital. And it's, people have been breaking it down recently of how many Hex is actually available on the market right now. And some of us know people on the sidelines. For one thing I didn't mention was one of the reasons I became interested in Hex was really because I'd witnessed three of my closest friends. Three close friends that are in my very close circle of friends, let's say. Two of them made tens of millions of dollars from Hex. One of them made into the hundreds of millions of dollars, which was eye-opening, right? These guys were not, these were relatively average Joes. We all have friends from different walks of life, as I've said before, but I saw this transference of wealth take place before my eyes. Some folks in our circle are very wealthy people who have done very well through traditional means. They've kind of gone through the traditional route there. And so, I saw this happen right out of the gates. And I know that even now, some of those people who are a lot more vetted in crypto, they're a lot more tenured in crypto now. Their experience is telling them that they want to wait for a higher point of consolidation within Hex before they start loading in more of their own funds. And it's hard for people to get their head around what that exactly means. Like, to think that someone's waiting for a higher price point to get in, because, that it doesn't really make sense to a lot of people, because you have that, you're missing out on the price performance from here to there, right? But it's not that. They're looking for indicators that we're consolidating at higher levels, which, and again, they understand in the grand scheme of things, this isn't necessarily going to matter too much. So as soon as we start getting up to, near 20 cents and seeing that consolidation take place, well, a lot of big money can get in at that point. And I'm saying big money, I'm not talking about institutions in this case. I'm talking about many of the OG hexicans, let's say, who have big bags sat on the sideline, people that I know personally who will wait for that higher price point, so that they know that, we're never going to see these prices again. And the way liquidity works, they'll then dollar cost average in with percentages of their wealth. They won't do it all at once, because they'll price themselves out, but they will dollar cost average in to make sure that, the slippage is all in keeping with the price points they want to get in at. And that in itself is going to push the price ridiculously, let alone a lot of the new folks coming in, a lot of the green candle chasers who are going to realize, as soon as we get into some of those higher price points, when we get to 20, 25, 30, and all of a sudden previous all-time highs looks more attainable, we're going to see a lot more interest then. And I think that, we have a very good opportunity here by, getting in early. Our little buys here and there are not going to move the price, right? Or they're not going to move the price as much. So it's one of the opportunities where the little guy really has the advantage. Big bags coming in, they'll rise price on themselves during that trade. Well, for us coming in with modest purchasing, let's say, and this is a great opportunity to accumulate. That's why, my tweet there is really, I try to keep things digestible for people. And accumulation right now is good on so many different levels. And even though, I've had a million questions coming in that I've tried my best to answer, but folks asking, is it a good time to take profit already? And I'm like, no, it's certainly not. Like, in my opinion, anything could happen and I could be wrong, but I don't think we've got out of the starting blocks yet. And so,
well, can you paint that picture too? Like, what's the other side? What is the, what happens if, another huge macro event, or PulseChain doesn't launch until 2024, or I guess what are the risks, or what are the things that could tamper down on this rocket ship that we all hope is coming, but hard to say.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a couple of macro events, firstly, that are probably going to have an effect regardless. But if we haven't launched by then, I think they could probably have a bit more of a detrimental effect on price. I think the target that we get to is going to remain the same. It's just going to be a prolonged period to get there. But one of those things is any Fed pivoting. As soon as they start lowering interest rates, I think that, a lot of the big money, for instance, a lot of certainly the institutions already in crypto will maybe start selling out of their positions and looking to kind of buy back in when they can leverage much lower rate loans, and then hopefully buy back in at bigger positions at lower price point, right? That happens in the stock market all the time. It's happening in crypto too. But I think that's one thing that if we prolong too long in terms of launching, that's something that could have an impact, and that's probably going to impact Richard Hart's thinking as well, just because he's going to want to time things. He's a pretty smart guy. He understands the effect that a Fed pivot will have, and so I'm assuming that will throw a spoke in the wheel, so to speak, and may even prolong it further because he's not going to want to launch at the wrong time. Election shenanigans as well. I think that elections are probably going to play. We've all been through the ringer with these elections. We don't know what's going to come out of whose mouth, and how many empty promises are going to kind of make their way into a crypto narrative. So that's probably going to affect things as well. But looking at the ecosystem itself, I think a little bit of a delay. May is perfect, I think, right? So if we are launching in May, I think that we have enough time where we can start really continuing to accumulate and continuing a long period of time, or a longish period of time in the grand scheme of things, to see continual price appreciation until we get some catalyst announcements, right? So I think that in an ideal world, a May or even a June, July, maybe a good time frame to keep seeing positive momentum in the HEX price, building up to a crescendo. Then obviously, as we start getting that main net, we'll inevitably dip a little bit after that. But then past that point, I think that we start then looking at what we touched on earlier, dollars. I think that is the next stop. And it's not, again, that liquidity is still going to be at a level where relatively little volume can really drastically push price up. And whether that be on EHEX or PHEX or a mixture between the both, I think it's irrelevant. I think that if you have a mindset where you're keeping both anyway, you're not at risk. You're going to realize a lot of that profit. But I think stopping and delaying for too long, of course, we see, especially the less experienced folks are starting to get a little antsy, or they've been antsy for a while. But that's come with a silver lining too. Perhaps a lot of those weak hands are being kind of shook out because people who did borrow money or were in life situations over time have been forced to find other means to cover that, and sort problems out and financial difficulties out in a different way. And so there is a silver lining to be had there with this delay. But I also think an important thing as well is traditional cycles. We can't dismiss that. So we're coming up to a very a very expected bull cycle, right? What people have been, we've and it's proven time and time again, right, that we count our way back from the halving, and then we start to see the rise. It's all going to plan right now, except this time with this bull cycle, we have the steroid injection of some of these economic macro kind of events and catalysts that are feeding it, and the floodgates opening with traditional money and all of that stuff are only feeding it higher. So I think regardless of if we launch now or if we launch closer to the bull market, that we're still going to get swept up in the wind of that. And so, we could see even steeper price movement if we delay and launch very close to the bull market proper. I've heard people referring to this as bull market spring right now. And it's so true. And I love that as well. I think that it's a great way of saying it, because I've been using the term kind of the start of the bull market and then the bull market in full. But spring is an apt term, especially in this ecosystem. I think we're decorrelated now as well for the most part. And so we'll be dependent on these hype cycles or this hype cycle coming up a great deal for initial price movement.